Welcome to Birdistan. Today we are going to discuss about the Baya Weaver,
Baya Weaver.
a
Perfect.
former state bird of Maharashtra. No honor in being former state bird for sir, but for sir, we are going to talk about the Baya Weaver now.
Yes. Since it is a former state bird of Maharashtra, now it seems our state bird is
Yellow-footed green pigeon,
which looks amazing as well. Baya Weaver also is known as Baya Weaver because it weaves its nest. That's
but
where the name
one thing
comes
you may
from.
be surprised by, the term weaver means to weave something. They only tie knots. That's all.
They
It
do,
should be
yeah.
called Baya knot tire instead.
Baya not tire.
Because when you see
That's
how
a
to
good
make a
name.
nest, that's all you see. Just tie knots.
Tying knots.
So weaver is not literally weaving.
Yeah. They are also known as Son Chiri in Hindi, and in some parts of India, Son Chiri is golden bird or a bird that looks golden. Maybe because of its plumage color that changes. The male's plumage color changes.
It's mainly golden, but will turn into a female house sparrow in non-breeding plumage.
Yes.
Female is normally looks like a female house sparrow, but will continue staying female house sparrow always. Juvenile is also like a female house sparrow.
True.
Male also will turn into a female house sparrow. So how do you make a difference now between what's a house sparrow and a Baya Weaver?
I'll tell you, Max. Because Baya Weaver males change their plumage, or changes happen in their plumage during the breeding season, and in non-breeding season they are actually not differentiable from female house sparrows. So they look just like a female house sparrows. Maybe little bit color tinges can be little brighter, maybe orange tinge or something like that in the males. Otherwise, during the breeding season, it is very easy to spot male Baya Weaver bird, which will have yellow color crown or the head and the
black
breast
mask.
area, and the black mask literally
Golden
of this
mask,
area, this whole
golden
area.
Breast and belly, their beak is like a fincher sparrow. So it's just silver or grey normally, but will turn pinkish.
Okay.
Then also they have a very short tail.
Yes, they have a short tail just like sparrows do,
And they weigh 38 grams.
wow, and they 28 grams, Max.
28 grams.
28 grams, 15 centimeters long.
So this is one of the few birds which weighs a lot more
More than
its,
how long it is.
length.
Yes. Also, their belly color when the male is in its plumage of the breeding season, it will have grayish belly as well as the lower undertail coverts. So all of that will look grayish. So it's a small sparrow looking like bird, literally sparrow like bird almost around the year, apart from the breeding season. Only in the breeding season there will be changes in the male Baya, and the female will
Breeding
still remain
season
the
is
same.
monsoon.
Yes, monsoon is supposed to be the breeding season. So when you're looking at them during the breeding season, you will be able to spot the Soan Chiri or the Baya Weaver bird. In Maharashtra, there used to be so many earlier. I think the populations have declined in the past decade.
They're not
or
found
so.
in urban gardens.
They were not found even in the past, Max, in urban gardens. But the moment we got out of Mumbai city limits, I, as a child, would spot many beaver nest hanging all across, all along the highways, etc. But now, when I go out outside Mumbai, I don't really see those many nests. Earlier, it was very common to spot nest of Baya Weaver all along the
Nowadays,
highways and
fortunately, you can
roads.
find common tailor birds nest in urban areas.
That is a good
Even
thing.
by the road or even in your garden or anywhere else.
True. So we will discuss more about their habitat, how they sound, what is their nesting and mating rituals, etc. Any threats if they are posed. Since I was talking about that, I don't see their nest as many as I saw as a child when we went out. So all of that also will be discussed in this video. Remain with us. How do we identify Baya Weaver with the way it sounds? Or what are the sounds that can distinguish it from other birds?
It makes a screech sound. It makes a chit chit like a house sparrow and makes a long drawn chee.
Chee. It's more like a house sparrow. When you're listening to Baya Weaver, I think even while listening, it is very difficult to distinguish between Baya Weaver as well as the house sparrows. Of course, house sparrows can go on and on and on. Though we don't have Baya Weaver living around
There's
in
one
the
simple
neighborhood.
way to differentiate them from the house sparrow.
Mhm.
You're not in an urban area because house sparrows are obligated to live in urban areas. Not, I've rarely found them in
In the
rural
wild.
areas.
No, they are there in rural areas as well,
But
but wherever
not
human
common.
habitations.
So the Baya Weavers are not close to human habitations.
They are on farms, yes. So maybe when you're thinking you're listening to a sparrow, a common house sparrow, when you are in the wild, maybe it is a Baya Weaver and not a house sparrow that you're
In the
looking
wild, also chances are very low of even finding a house sparrow at that.
True. So they make these long whistles, screech-like, buzz-like sounds, and chit-chits and chee-chee, but more like a sparrow. And especially when you are in the wild or you are in an open grassland, open farmland, and when you are listening
They
to this
become
sound,
more loud when making the nest.
yes, then you can know that maybe it is not a sparrow this time. It could be a Baya Weaver that you're listening to. If you investigate more, you might be able to see them. Let's discuss where do we find Baya Weaver.
They're found in scrubs,
Okay.
cultivated areas,
Haha.
and forest. Simple.
Farmlands as well, and open grasslands. So they can be found, like Max said,
Nowadays,
cultivated
open
areas.
grassland, you can also say pasture land for cattle.
Yes, pasture land for cattle. They are also very social birds, and they also live in colonies. Colonies that are made up of 20 to 30 nest or beavers
They're
together.
gregarious, or let's say social, flocking birds.
They can be found all across Southeast Asian countries
And Indian subcontinent.
subcontinent. So all over India, they can be found, especially in the on the plateaus, etc., where farmland is much more. And they also have great. They perform those formations, flying formations, along with complex maneuvers with each other.
They do.
Yeah, and they fly in close formations as well. So being socially is one thing, living socially or living in close contact with each other is another, and also making those maneuvers that are great for birders who like to observe them as well as make
These
videos.
maneuvers are not for fun at all.
Yeah.
These maneuvers are for avoiding predators and saving their own life.
Yes, living in a big group or a flock so that others stay away from them. That's why they show these maneuvers or display them. They can be found almost all over India, all over Indian subcontinent, and
And they're
Southeast
known to
Asian
be pests to farmers.
Yes, that is one of the bad things about Baya Weaver, that they are considered like pests for farmers because they damage a lot of crops, especially when the crop is ripe and before harvest season, as well as after harvesting. Once the harvest is done, they can glean the grains from the sites where the harvested grain is kept, especially paddy grain. They flock to it and they damage a lot of it. So they can be a nuisance and pest for farmers for sure. Let us discuss what do Baya Weavers eat, or what is the typical diet.
They take paddy grains, just grains, they glean it from the ground.
Yes, they prefer, I think, grain. So they glean it from the ground, like we
And
discussed
they can
earlier as
also
well.
take insects.
Sometimes small insects as well. But I think primary diet of Baya Weaver would be grain, paddy grains specifically, and they try to find seeds in flocks. So they they make flocks and they forage for seeds, etc. So they are busy, on the ground as well as on plants, foraging for seeds and foraging for food grains. They can attack literally the entire farms at a time, and they can eat a lot on a particular day.
There are many other pests like birds. For example, black drongo takes honeybees away from honey keepers.
Yes, so they can also be a nuisance. As well as house sparrows also attack a lot of farms, and they also steal a lot of grain from the farms when it is ripe. So this behavior is very similar to house sparrows as well. Now coming down to the most important and most defining things
And
of the Baya Weaver.
Of course, the Baya Weaver, its nest and its breeding. Now, how could we not forget its nest.
Yes. How can you even forget about the nest?
That's what a
The
weaver
nest-
is important for. People buy weaver because it weaves a nest. This nest is tied instead, but it's still an important nest.
There is a chamber, a circular chamber in the nest, and then there is a tube like.
This tube
straight
design is for making
line.
excreta fall out.
So it looks for me when for the first time I saw it, to me it looked like a coconut that was hanging upside down, isn't it, Max? It
Yes.
looks like a coconut. In the center it is broader or circular, and then downwards it is open, and up it is attached to the branch of the tree. Their nest is built mainly by the male Baya Weaver. That is to
The male
attract the female.
starts courtship behavior when the nest is partially built at that.
Yeah.
Usually the nest which is partially built looks like a helmet with straps.
It does when it is partially built. So at 50%.
The female inspects the nest and checks whether it's suitable to pair or not. The male keeps showing off its property by flapping its wings.
Baya weavers can be so much like humans when it comes to property and selecting a right
Real
kind of
estate
property.
is here.
Real estate is actually taking place, and all of the things that humans look for in real estate
For them, it's
before
not
buying
a-
flats or property.
The most suitable nest is built over water at the end of branches and palm and thorny trees. So it's all about location. It's nothing about the nest. A half-built nest is still suitable.
So it is all about location. Why this location is chosen? It should be ideally above
It should be
the
called
water.
the real estate bird.
It is a real estate bird, and thus its name also comes like that, beaver. Because above the water and thorny trees, as well as the palm tree selection, is for keeping the predators away and keeping the nest safer from any kind of predators. So they prefer it to be above a water hanging location than other locations that could be above land.
Intra-specific brood parasitism happens. Not a cuckoo laying its egg. A female Baya Weaver laying its egg in another nest of its own species. This must be happening because then sometimes the male may die and the nest will continue staying partially built.
Yeah, sometimes I don't know about the male dying or not, but the
Well-
male has definitely not completed the entire nest yet, and the female is almost about to lay the egg. So the female does not have the nest ready for the egg to be laid. So what the female will do, it will go and lay it in some another female's nest. Mainly the nests are considered to be for the female and not for the male, because males keep on building more and more
They may
nests
acquire
after one
two to-
one female to the next female.
They may acquire 2 to 3 females as they mate in one breeding season.
True. And the breeding season intervals are up to 1.5 years.
For males, for females is 1 year, probably because serotonin production is low.
Yes, and their serotonin production
Serotonin
determines when they will
whether
breed.
they are good enough to breed or not.
True. So they are ready only to breed when their serotonin production starts in their body. Maybe that also causes the appearance or the change in the appearance for Baya Weavers.
The male Baya Weaver can molt 2 times a year, means
Wow.
they replace their feathers 2 times a year. One for acquiring the breeding and one for getting the female house sparrow look.
Wow. So it can change its appearance or mold 2 times. a
Female
year.
does not molt much.
Yes, because the female remains almost the same. So this was about nest building and the location of this property, how it is going to be selected. So the females only like better property, better nest, and the location of the nest. So once 50% completion is done by the male,
Usually
then it
these
will
nests
start attracting
Are made
females.
by fine fibers and grass, and also
Yes.
to reinforce it, they have got clay put on them.
Ha, ha, ha.
500 trips are made to make the nest.
True. The male takes almost 500
The clay
trips to
put
make
on
one
this is
nest.
put on the nest because to reinforce it from weather. It won't fall down from thunderstorm also in monsoon.
Wow. Not just the location wise of the nest where exactly it is going to be situated, but also they know the sense of direction. Baya Weavers. So they are architectures, literally bird architecture. If there
They
is
often
any,
position
this is the one.
in the nest facing the east
Yes.
to avoid monsoon rat.
As well as the heating from the morning sun, and the west side wind and everything can be avoided, southwestern wind. So they position their nest on the trees which is towards the east direction and not other direction. So all that is already calculated by the male. So the male actually does a lot of work, and like Max said, 500 trips to make each nest.
So
and
1,500
makes
trips
every
for
season,
other nests.
breeding season, the monsoon season, it breeds with 3 to 4 female Baya
2
weavers.
to 3.
So yeah, 2 to 3. So many nests it is building.
It
It's
may
a lot
even
of
build,
hard work.
it may build more nests than females. Some nests are not in work for attracting the females. Sometimes females may
It can be
decline.
rejected, yes.
So more and more is being built.
A lot of nest for sure for Baya Weaver. Now, once the nest is built and once the eggs are laid, the female Baya Weaver lays about 2 to 3 eggs per bunch or the clutch, and it takes about 14 to 16 days for it to hatch. But all of this process is done mainly by the female. Males play no role absolutely
A simple
in the incubation
and safe term
and the
to
care.
say, it's all about genetic and population, nothing more. No emotion.
No emotion attached of the male with the young ones. So everything else after the eggs are laid or after the nest is completed is done by the female Baya Weaver. Of the incubation, feeding, caring for the young ones, everything is done by the female solely. Any possible threat, if any, to
Is
Baya Weavers comes
lizards,
from lizards,
crows, birds of prey,
yes.
birds who take the nest when they are empty.
I know. As
Silver
well as
bills, Indian silver bill, and munias, of course.
they like to use
Some local species, white-rumped munia, tricolor munia, scaly-breasted munia.
So they like to reuse the nest of Baya Weaver, nest that is already left by the Baya Weaver. Sometimes rodents, rats, etc. also can reuse the nest
Well,
of
because it is so strong.
of Baya Weaver. So it is a property that is made to last longer for others as well. So the other things, creatures also can utilize their nest. It is not uncommon for crows to attack the nest even when it is above the water. So crows try to attack it maybe for the eggs.
Being above the water only stops mammals and land predators,
Yes.
not avian predators.
True. So they are often attacked by crows for eggs, and these are the possible threats for the population because their eggs can get damaged instantly. Apart from that, I think if you ask me about conservation efforts as well as whether the population is okay of Baya
The
Weaver,
population is least concerned.
it
you
is
can say.
least concern
Nothing
as per
special.
described by IUCN, but I would say the population is definitely declined in Maharashtra at least.
Of course, we do not need to organize this thing to explain. Sometimes it is about how much you see it locally.
Yes.
The terms least concern, for you it may be a different story.
Yes, in your region or in your locality, it could be different from overall population of the bird. So although the bird population is not
Least concern also
declining
means that
at an
there is no
alarming rate.
serious threat and it may not be in decline.
yes,
it-
or may not go extinct
It,
soon.
yes, also means no threat is ever going to come. Near threat in which comes after least concern pole means there is going to be a threat soon, extinction level threat,
Yeah.
which is serious.
But as per me, I think their habitat loss has definitely caused decline in the number of birds that I have personally experienced. When we were children, we were taught about this bird in our school textbook because it being state bird of Maharashtra those days. And after that, when I have grown up now and when I go out, like I mentioned in the beginning itself, I don't see as many nests as before. So there definitely has been a decline in their habitat and their numbers. Most probably because so much urbanization has taken place in Maharashtra, at least around Mumbai. So it could have been a possible reason, or they may have shifted towards more rural areas and more outskirts of Mumbai. But at least the regions where I experienced seeing them, not seen them in the past few years.